we need to get you into like some Dune where like if we can get you experiencing multiple levels of consciousness at once, maybe you can say all 6 sentences simultaneously.
Ooh, nice. Yeah.
But it'll be very efficient in terms of the amount of information conveyed.
Right.
But our listeners' brains will also melt.
Yes. Well, even if I could do the Tibetan throat singer version of saying 2 things at once, that I could... There's going to be the high thought, and then there's going to be, there's going to be the superego thought and the id thought at the same time.
I feel like we're getting closer and closer to just Hypnotoad from Futurama.
Books.
Hello, and welcome to Didn't Read It, the podcast that's waiting for a tagline. Here we are. I am your host, Grace Todd, writer, editor, book gremlin, etc. And with me today is an old friend from a different pod.
What?
David Timberline.
That's right. Cheating from another pod.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, welcome back to me.
Welcome back to me too. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I've missed this.
We haven't been together in front of a microphone in a while now.
I know. It's a hole in my heart and in my life, but I feel like this will be a temporary fill
to tide you over for like a little while.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't go through too much podcast. I mean, well, I was going to say podcasting withdrawal, but you have a podcast.
I do. Yeah. But it's not the same. It's not the same as what we used to do, Grace.
I mean,
the magic we used to make together.
I can't help but notice that you haven't invited me on your podcast.
Well, maybe this will be the first. This will be the beginning of more collaborations down the road. I know. I feel bad now. Sorry.
You should.
Yeah.
You should feel bad.
Right. Well, see, now I'm coming to you to talk about theater, and so you're going to have to come to me to talk about literature on stage. I don't see how does it work?
Well, do you want to take a moment and tell the listeners
who the hell I am?
And what your other podcast is?
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity, Grace. I'm David Timberline. I have another podcast called Chasing Phantom, the podcast about Broadway's longest running shows. I am a theater advocate. Yeah, I've been writing about theater for about 25 years. And I am also still, I try to keep a fresh view because I'm not like a theater nerd. I never did much theater. I ran props and like that. So unlike the Seth Rudetsky's of the world or the, people who do real podcasts about theater, I'm still kind of a novice being like, hey, look, isn't theater fun?
I mean, I don't know really if you can get away with unironically calling yourself not a theater nerd when you are a theater critic with a theater podcast. Like, at what point does the nerd part kick in? But I get what you're a gentleman amateur.
I guess so. Maybe that's it. If you graded it on a curve, I'm like, I guess within the bell curve. I'm not out on the outskirts of certain people.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay. Phew.
Well, I like your show very much. It's
thanks.
Very fun, and I highly recommend that anybody listening go give it a shot.
Yay.
Go check it out.
I learn every day, every episode, I learn things. It's just amazing. See, that's the thing is I talk to people who know a lot more about theater than I do. And so, by the end of the run here, I'm following all of Broadway's longest running shows from Phantom of the Opera, all the ones, there's like over 125 that have had more than 1,000 performances.
That's wild.
That's a lot of shows. And most of them I know nothing about. So I talk to people about it. And by the end of like 5 years or so of doing the podcast, I'm going to know everything about theater, at least.
Usually I ask people what they've been reading lately, but in deference to your area of expertise, what was the last piece of theater you saw that really excited you?
That's such a great question. Thank you, Grace. You're the best podcast host in the world.
All right, you be careful. It's going to start. The line between enthusiasm and condescension is razor thin, and you are tap dancing on it, my friend.
Well, it's a very well-timed question, I would say, because just last weekend I saw a show called Air Swimming that...
Oh, I've been wanting to see that.
Have you've heard of it before?
I got a little promotional postcard in the mail from the Triangle Theater.
Well, and what's cool about it, and I ended up writing a review about it where I mentioned Waiting for Godot, because it is about two women who have been, committed to an insane asylum in the 20s. And
that seems bad.
It is bad, but the way that they cope with that experience and their relationship is what fuels the show. And so it's not dissimilar than Waiting for Godot, in that it's two people stuck somewhere waiting for things to happen, having very little control of their outside circumstances. It was very well done. Great performances and very well directed. So
very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you jumped the lead there a little bit.
Oh.
In that,
Oops.
David.
Yes.
You have brought me something.
I have.
What have you brought me?
Guess. Go ahead, guess. I've brought you one of the seminal works in theater, Waiting for Godot.
I'm so excited.
Written by Samuel Beckett.
Uh-huh.
It came out it was originally published in 1949. It was first produced in 1952, I believe. And it is kind of a serious benchmark in the world of theater.
And the world of literature. Like, it's one of those plays that it comes up a lot in literary conversation.
Yeah.
Which not all plays do. You know what I mean? I'm thinking of, like, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is one that comes up a lot in literature syllabi, as it were. And Waiting for Godot is another one of those, which I haven't read it.
Well,
thus the name of the show.
Do you have a sense of what it's about or why people talk about it so much?
What I know about it is that it is a cast of two old dudes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus.
And that's it. That's all I know.
Okay.
And there's some waiting. And I have a hunch, just based on the way that I see this invoked, that the waiting turns out to be potentially
the point
in vain / the point. That's it. That's all I got.
Well, that's pretty perceptive. That's pretty much right on. I think one of the things that one of the reviews when the first production was done in London, the first production was done in Paris, and then it was such a sensation there that they very quickly moved it and did a production in London. And the reviews of the London production were crazy, basically because they were totally split in that nobody had a half opinion about it. It was like people hated it or people loved it. And one of the most famous reviews from that production was somebody who said, it's a show where nothing happens twice. Because the first act is basically replicated in the second act. It's the same essential progression happens twice with very specific changes. So,
but it's literature.
It is literature.
It's nothing happening literarily.
Exactly. And,
okay.
And, if you want a more modern reference, it's somewhat like Seinfeld in that, sure, that was a show about nothing, but there's a lot going on.
You can get a lot of something into nothing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And, it's informed by... Beckett was very much influenced by Camus and Sartre and Dali and a lot of he was a Parisian kind of person. He hung out in the post-war Parisian society and was soaking up all this stuff. He also, for a long time, worked for James Joyce.
Oh.
So there's another kind of big influence on him.
Interesting. I mean, we know Joyce.
Yeah, right.
We love Joyce.
In some ways, he's almost the opposite of Joyce. He was an academic, and he really wanted to do he wrote several novels, and he kind of wanted to be another James Joyce. And then after the war, and we could talk about his war experience if you want, but he had a pretty intense war experience. He was in the resistance, the French resistance and everything.
Oh.
Yeah. So
that's not a fun time.
Yeah. So, he had some pretty, he came out of the war having truly experienced it. And he had this like revelation at some point to be almost the anti-Joyce, that like Joyce was cramming all this stuff into his work, these influences and these references and this like making them big, big, big. And Beckett's revelation was like, I'm going to do the opposite of that. And it's going to be less and less and less. And you can see in his plays, Godot, not much happens. I mean, it's a circus compared to like some of his later shows, or his later plays, where like it's literally like 3 mouths speaking on stage, or like
that sounds off-putting.
It's like he tried really, really hard to bring whatever point he was making down to the most minimalist point.
He said, sorry to Joyce, but I'm built different.
Yeah, right. And, I kind of wonder if it was a little bit of a understanding, like, I can't be Joyce. Here's something I can do.
Well, and also, like, what place does sort of Joycean prose have in a post-World War II society? Because he was right on trend, I guess is what I'm saying, is like literature has only gotten progressively more spare.
Yeah.
As the decades have gone by. We haven't I'm waiting for a resurgence of like florid Victorian prose, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
Join the waiting, right? Yeah. And I think part of what is also fascinating about Godot is that he was really keen on the shape of things. So this has the shape of a play, but it doesn't have any of the content of a play.
Oh.
And so some of the really positive reviews were kind of like, oh, this is what Beckett has done, has given us what the true essence of theater is. It doesn't have to be fancy sets. It doesn't have to be these big production numbers. It's like 2 people interacting on stage, and what happens between those 2 people is what drama and theater is about. So
I mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
So, tell that to people who are doing, Jersey Boys and Six on Broadway, but it's not actually happening right now, but like that was his idea about theater at the time. And I think what's unfortunate is people will, I'm sure this, I mean, I feel like this is an underpinning to this podcast to some extent. People will hear something like Waiting for Godot and like, oh, that's serious. Yeah, that's going to be intense. I'm going to have an intense experience. It's funny. It's a really funny show. And that's on purpose. Part of the reason it was so mind-blowing to people is you have Sartre, who does a play called No Exit, which is like people in hell. And that you're going to come out of there feeling pain. You're going to feel things. You're going to feel like, ouch.
Right.
You're going to hurt from that. There's going to be psychological and possibly emotional damage happening because of some. But Beckett kind of very purposely, he took inspiration from vaudeville. And, among the only things that are consistent across almost every production of Godot, I always say that wrong. I'll talk about that in a minute, but is that these 2 guys wear bowler hats, and that's a throwback to vaudeville.
Oh, that makes sense.
They're essentially like vaudeville entertainers. And so This is supposed to be funny. The best performances of this are by Steve Martin, Robin Williams. It's by Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, who are both really, really funny when they do it.
My parents saw that production.
Oh my God.
And I'll never forgive them.
Do they still tell you about it? Do they still taunt you with it?
Yes, because Ian McKellen made fun of my mother for not finding her seat quickly enough after intermission.
Oh my gosh.
In like a cute way. And I'm going to be mad at her forever.
She's basically besties with Ian McKellen, is that?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, geez. Wow.
And she won't introduce me. Damn it.
Damn it, Mom. Does she listen?
She does.
Okay. Hi, Mom. Well, do you want to hear about it a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to say,
let's
take us on a journey.
Okay.
Let's go. Like, tell me a story, David.
All right. Well, this is going to be probably one of your shorter synopsi, I would expect.
Is that the plural of synopsis?
I don't know. Did I just make that up?
Who knows? All right. Carry on.
It is 120 pages, and I will not agree with the critics who say nothing happens. A lot of things happen. There is not, however, like plot points as you would experience in many of the novels that you have covered in this show.
Sure, fair.
Nobody is like waving to somebody from a porch as they ride off to war or anything like that. None of that is happening.
I'd like to tell our listeners, by the way, that this is the first time this has happened. You brought me my own copy of the book.
Absolutely.
Which is so exciting because now I have something to look at.
That's right. And to take home with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
Thanks, buddy.
Oh, sure.
So I've got, I'll set the scene.
Sure.
Act 1. A country road. A tree. Evening.
So another consistent point is the tree. Like there has to be a tree.
Okay.
There doesn't have to be any other set at all, but there has to be a tree because they refer to the tree quite a lot. The two main characters are Vladimir and Estragon. They call each other Didi and Gogo.
Are those normal nicknames for those names?
That's a good question. I don't really know.
Okay, fair.
And
is this like one of those Russian things where the nickname does not sound at all like the real name, but they're like, no, this is normal. And you're like...
Yeah, I think so.
Fair.
And at one point in the play, Vladimir calls himself Vladimir, but otherwise, I think the audience would only know them as Didi and Gogo.
Huh.
Gogo is kind of sitting on this country road, very barren looking, very spare, and he is fighting against his boot. He's trying to get his boot off.
Relatable.
Right. And at one point he can't get it off and he stops and he goes, "Nothing to be done."
Also relatable. Sometimes the shoe just has to stay on.
And that phrase recurs several times. Nothing to be done. Nothing to be done. When you get into the bigger ideas around this play that people enforce on it, it's like, oh, yeah, the human condition. Yeah, nothing to be done. You can't get off your boot. It's the struggles that we all have day to day, and there's nothing to be done. So that's how he's setting the plate here for the rest of the show.
Okay. Hashtag relatable. Hashtag bed rotting.
Right. So Didi comes in, and they immediately start dialoguing. And it's just like this weird back and forth. They obviously know each other. They've obviously been friends for forever. It's usually played by older actors. And it's also generally a taller, skinnier, and shorter, fatter actor, kind of
another
tradition.
Callback to vaudeville.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of what happens is this kind of who's on first kind of dialogue, but with existential kind of themes. So the first bit of dialogue that I thought we could run through together is he's referring to when Christ was crucified.
Oh, so we're just starting out nice and topical.
Exactly.
Nice and light.
Well, and before this, I mean, we're on page 9 at this point, right? Before this, which I haven't mentioned, one of the first things Didi says is, what should we do? And Gogo says, well, we could hang ourselves.
Okay.
And they go through this whole conversation about why they shouldn't hang themselves. And then, so like I said, it's like vaudeville, but they're talking about pretty like intense things and big things. But Didi starts going into this whole thing about the way Christ's crucifixion is talked about in the Bible. And so I'll be Didi if you will be Gogo.
Remind me which one is Didi and which one is Gogo.
Vladimir is Didi.
Okay.
And Estragon is Gogo.
So I'm Estragon.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll start out and say...
I thought we were making a podcast, but it turns out, dear listener, that I have been roped into a theater exercise.
Yeah. Hey. La, 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 la. Okay. So this is Vladimir. How is it that the 4 evangelists, he's talking about what is Christ's followers called? Who did the Gospels?
Disciples.
Disciples, there we go. How is it that of the 4 evangelists, only one speaks of a thief being saved? The 4 of them were there, or thereabouts, and only one speaks of a thief being saved. Come on, Gogo, return the ball. Can't you, once in a way?
I find this really most extraordinarily interesting.
1 out of 4. Of the other 3, 2 don't mention any thieves at all, and the 3rd says that both of them abused him.
Who?
What?
What's this all about? Abused who?
The Savior.
Why?
Because he wouldn't save them.
From hell?
Imbecile, from death.
I thought you said hell.
From death, from death.
Well, what of it?
Then the two of them must have been damned.
Why not?
But one of the four says that one of the two was saved.
Well, they don't agree. That's all there is to it.
But all four were there, and only one speaks of a thief being saved. Why believe him rather than the others?
Who believes him?
Everybody. It's the only version they know.
People are bloody ignorant apes.
Scene. This is the kind of bantering that is going on between these guys. In the midst of all that, they're going back and forth. Vladimir is struggling with his boot, finally gets it off. Onto this scene come two other characters, Putzo and Lucky.
Oh.
Yeah, there's more characters.
I didn't know there were more than two people in this play.
Oh, yes, there is. Yes, indeed. Putzo is some kind of nobleman. We don't really know. He has some stature, and he has a servant, some say slave, who is going before him, who he's holding by a rope.
Oh.
A rope around his neck.
Oh.
Yep. Putzo goes into all sorts of eloquent statements about his trials and everything. All the time, he's basically pulling Lucky on this rope and ordering him around. And both Didi and Gogo are kind of trying to figure out what's going on with this. And eventually, after kind of going on for a while, Putzo says, "You've been so kind, how can I repay you?" And Gogo immediately is like, well, you could give us some money.
Money is usually a good way to repay people, yes.
Yeah, but if Putzo, in the usual, like, clueless upper crust way, says, well, maybe I can give you some entertainment or something like that. And he makes Lucky dance.
Oh, no.
He says, Lucky dance. And he does this kind of crazy, this is another way that this production is a container for all sorts of madness. It sets it up to be like, okay, Lucky does a dance. It's usually choreographed as some kind of, jerky, insane dance. Mm-hmm. And after that, they say, well, make him think. And then there's this back and forth about, well, he used to think, but he can't think anymore. And, he used to think such eloquent thoughts, and then he doesn't think. And finally, after he actually says, think, and he dances instead. And he's like, no, think. And eventually, Lucky, who has been totally quiet up to this point, launches into this like 3-page monologue that is just pseudo-academic gibberish, during which, as he goes on and on and on, all three characters have these like crazy reactions where first Putzo is like pained and like, he's going on. Didi and Gogo are confused, and eventually all of them get so agitated by him going on and on that they tackle him and wrestle him to the ground.
Is this...
Yeah.
Is there race stuff happening here? What was...
I would say that is a good question.
Okay.
I don't think it is racial as much as classist, given the background of the people involved, particularly Beckett. And I also think there is a possible, all of this has been interpreted thousands of different ways, but I would say that Putzo is kind of this caricature of somebody who is upper class, mm-hmm. and Lucky is somebody who is either a caricature of a lower class person or of a true, slave.
Well, that's
servant.
Because Beckett was.
He was Irish,
but he was he'd been in France for quite a while.
Yes,
but because France was also a colonial power.
Oh yeah,
as much as they like to be like.
Oh yeah.
Who? What?
Yeah.
What colony?
Well, and a lot of people have talked about how this was immediately informed by most of Europe being taken over by the Nazis and that kind of dynamic. And so maybe there's an anti-Semitic element to this as well. So part of the joy of this play, I would say, is it is purposely anything you want it to be within reason.
Right. It's so spare that you can project.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a container in which you pour whichever your predilections or your current interests into. So I will read just the very beginning of Lucky's kind of diatribe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it also helps to know that Beckett was a total academic. He studied languages. He was a lecturer in languages. He was very accomplished at languages. So he was from Ireland, from Dublin. He spent most of his life in Paris, so he wrote in French, but then he translated his own works into English.
Oh.
So the beginning of Lucky's big speech is, given the existence, as uttered forth in the public works of Puncher and Watchman, of a personal God, qua, 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 with white beard, qua, 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 outside time, without extension, who from the heights of divine apathia, divine athambia, divine aphasia, loves us dearly, with some exceptions, for reasons unknown, but time will tell, and suffers like the divine Miranda, with those who, for reasons unknown, but time will tell, are plunged into torment, plunged in fire, whose fire flames, if that continues, and who can doubt it will, fire the firmament, that is to say, blast hell to heaven, so blue, still, and calm, so calm, with a calm which, even though intermittent, is better than nothing. So, and this is like, that's like a tenth of this whole thing.
It's really funny knowing that he was such a Joyce fanboy.
Yeah.
Because that, I mean, obviously Joyce is has a lot more meaning to it. But that kind of like frantic, it is reminiscent of some of Joyce's less structured work.
Well, and I think that's where this really pays off as literature, is if you could spend a day just going through Lucky's speech and pulling out the different pieces that he's pulling in there. There's Beckett was also kind of famously athletic. He played cricket, and he was like always interested in cricket, and a very athletic guy. And there's a piece in this whole big monologue where he talks about how we've made great strides of physical culture, the practice of sports such as tennis, football, running, cycling, swimming, flying, floating, riding, gliding, Kumaji, skating, tennis of all kinds, dying, flying, sports of all sports, autumn, summer. You notice that he throws dying in the middle of there? So there's all sorts of things like that where he kind of...
I mean, dying could be sporty.
Well, yeah, I guess so. By the end of this diatribe, which gets, as directed, usually gets more and more frantic. You know, Lucky is just revving himself up, getting more and more frantic. And curiously, he is also wearing a bowler hat. They wrestle him to the ground, and when they take his hat off, he stops.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So eventually they help Lucky back up. They put the rope back around his neck.
Not loving that.
Yeah.
Symbolism. Yeah.
And Putzo and Lucky leave, and Putzo bids them adieu. Actually, he bids them adieu and doesn't leave. And then eventually he says, I don't seem able to depart. And then he says, such is life. But eventually he does go. And after he goes, the next bit of dialogue is, so this is Vladimir. Putzo has just said, up, pig, faster, adieu, pig. So he's yelling to Lucky, okay, let's go. He leaves. Vladimir says, well, that passed the time.
It would have passed in any case.
Yes, but not so rapidly.
What do we do now?
I don't know.
Let's go.
We can't.
Why not?
We're waiting for Godot.
Ah.
How they've changed.
Who?
Those two.
That's the idea. Let's make a little conversation.
Haven't they?
What?
Changed.
Very likely. They all change. Only we can't.
Likely. It's certain. Didn't you see them?
I suppose I did, but I don't know them.
Yes, you do know them.
No, I don't know them.
We know them, I tell you. You forget everything. Unless they're not the same. So, again, so then they fall again into this like back and forth about existence. They, again, as they're older actors, and as I am an older person at this point, they're constantly forgetting what just happened. They're constantly talking about, you're not who you are. I mean, there's all this identity stuff that happens where you never really know what they know.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So are they, in that section, it seems like they could be talking about the people who just left, and they could be talking about the audience.
Yeah. Most of what they say is up to interpretation. What I find most fascinating there is that this is the first time they say waiting for Godot.
Ah.
And also that part about that passed the time. It would have passed anyway.
Right.
So a very classically existential line.
Yeah.
So after that, there's more, a little bit more bantering. And then a boy comes in. He's actually says that he had been waiting off stage because he was scared by what was going on with Lucky and everything. But he comes in and he says, Godot is not coming today, but he will come tomorrow. Actually, the exact line is, he won't come this evening, but certainly tomorrow. And they ask him, are you the same boy that came yesterday? And he says, no, of course not. They start questioning him about Godot, and he doesn't know anything. And then they say, are you unhappy? And he says, I don't know, sir.
I don't know. I'm a plot device.
Exactly. We're building up to the end of Act 2, and then there's another little piece of dialogue that I thought we could do.
So wait, to be clear, is this the first time that they explain anything about Godot? Like, this is the first time we get the context of what they're doing.
No, he has said before that, actually, fairly early on, he says Godot's coming today, and he said to come to the place with a tree.
Okay, so we have established
yes.
that they are supposed to meet him there.
Right.
And now, but this is the first time that they say waiting, and you're like, that's the title.
Right.
They said it.
Exactly.
He said the thing.
And you also get a sense where he says, are you the same boy who came yesterday? Where this actually isn't the first time that they've been waiting.
Right.
So.
How long have we been waiting?
Good question. Yes.
Is it eternity? Is this a metaphor?
Possibly.
Damn it. Tricked again.
They go back and forth about different things. Eventually, Gogo decides he's going to he finally gets his boot off. At some point, he does. And he's just going to leave them. So that's a big plot point. He's just going to leave his boots.
No more boots.
No more boots.
The boots are dead to us.
Right. And so next bit of dialogue, Vladimir says, you can't go barefoot.
Christ did.
Christ? What has Christ got to do with it? You're not going to compare yourself to Christ.
All my life, I've compared myself to him.
But where he lived, it was warm. It was dry.
Yes, and they crucified quick.
We've nothing more to do here.
Nor anywhere else.
Ah, Gogo, don't go on like that. Tomorrow, everything will be better.
How do you make that out?
Did you not hear what the child said?
No.
He said that Godot was sure to come tomorrow. What do you say to that?
Then all we have to do is wait on here.
So, by this point, we have established, I think, pretty well
that we are going around in circles.
Exactly, right. By the end of the act, they're debating whether they're going to go or not. They decide, yes, we're going to go. Gogo says, well, shall we go? And Dee Dee says, yes, let's go. And then they don't move.
It says, they do not move.
Right.
Curtain.
Yep. So that's your first act. Any thoughts on the first act?
No.
No?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm getting bed rotting. I'm getting shoe abandonment. I'm getting endless cyclical metaphorical traps.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some very uncomfortable colonial overtones.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
I think you're picking up what Beckett's putting down there.
Good job, me.
Well done. So Act 2 starts, and Dee Dee, Vladimir, starts singing a song, and Gogo comes in, and Dee Dee goes, you again. And they go to embrace at some point, and Gogo says, don't touch me, don't question me, don't speak to me, stay with me.
Look, we've all been there. Honestly.
Mixed messages, maybe?
Look, whomst among us has not said that to our boyfriend?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
I mean...
Or boyfriends.
Yeah, exactly.
Polycule members. But the one thing that starts to happen here, and you get a little sense of it in the first act, but the second act, I think, really, it comes through a little bit closer. And this is part of why I really like this play, is you get a sense of their relationship, Dee Dee and Gogo's relationship, and how important it is. In the first act, when they were talking about hanging themselves, one of the reasons that Dee Dee says they can't is because he's thinner. If he hanged himself first, then he would die, and then the rope would break, and it would leave Gogo by himself. And so he feels sad to think that he would die and then leave Gogo by himself.
Aww.
And in the second act, basically you have that fight that happens right there where Gogo is generally the more cantankerous of the two of them. And he's like, yeah, don't touch me, stay with me. And Gogo starts saying, you'd be so much happier without me. And he talks about how hard it is to go through life. And they would be much better if they were parted. And then they end up like talking about how great it is that they don't say how great it is, but they end up settling basically for the fact that they are together and that they are kind of fated to be together.
They need each other.
In a very kind of fundamental way, yes.
They love each other.
Right. They talk about Putzo and Lucky coming the day before, which Gogo says that he's forgotten it.
Yeah.
They notice that the tree seems to have sprouted leaves overnight.
So entire seasons are passing, is what you're telling me.
That it's very unclear. I mean, in the stage direction, it says the next day, same time. But what they seem to be saying in the play is like, actually, this could be like the next year, same time.
Is Godot death? God damn it. Is Godot death? Are they waiting for death together?
I mean, it's Godot.
God f***ing damn it. You're fired. Beckett's fired.
There was all sorts of controversy about that, though. People thought, oh, well, it's God, right? It's like, no, it's not God. Beckett was very clear that it was not God that they were waiting for.
No, but is death.
I mean,
they're waiting for death.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, existentialism, death,
Damn it.
Right. At some point, Dee Dee gives Gogo a radish.
I love a radish. Thinly sliced, in salted butter, the way the French do. Beautiful.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Especially if you grow them at home. Magnificent.
Unfortunately, I think Dee Dee has been, the insinuation is that he's been carrying these in his pockets, and so that they may be a little bit, I don't know, a little mushy.
I'm just so glad you said pockets.
Yeah. Instead of?
I don't know. There was a long pause. I was waiting.
And I will say, and I guess I haven't really talked about this much yet, there's a lot of bathroom humor in this show.
Yes.
One of the first things that Gogo says to Dee Dee in the first act is, well, you could keep up appearances at least. And basically it's because Dee Dee spends the first part of the first act with his fly down.
That is some grade A old man humor.
There you go. Yep. As you will remember, Gogo has taken off his boots and he had left them there. There's another pair of boots in the beginning of the second act. Turns out they're different boots. The first ones didn't fit him. These seem to fit him.
Time has passed.
Boom. Right. There's a lot of conjecture between the two of them, whether they are the same boots, whether they're different boots. And then there's a little dialogue about the two of them together.
We don't manage too badly, Dee, between the two of us.
Yes. Come on. We'll try the left. They're talking about the boots. Yes. Please. Come on. Try the left one first.
We always find something, Dee, to give us the impression we exist.
Yes, we're magicians. But let us persevere in what we have resolved before we forget. Come on, give me. Oh, come on, give me your foot. So, again, this is a very small moment, but I love that it's usually Dee Dee who's kind of being like, we're okay, we're doing all right. And Gogo in this moment is, in the second act, he's kind of come around to the fact that they're good together.
I, too, spend a lot of time finding things to give me the impression that I exist.
Yes.
That's not as much of a joke as I would like it to be. I feel like half the conversations I have with my closest friends boiled down to like, but we've always find something, don't we? To give us the impression that we exist.
See, this is the enduring power and attraction of this work.
Tell me I exist, David.
Exactly. And it requires another person, right?
Yes.
That you can't be convinced that you exist in a vacuum.
Humans are not meant to be so much alone.
Exactly. See, and this is I'm getting teary. No, but to me, part of what is so great about this weird show is that kind of at the heart of it, it is about two people who are persevering together, and amidst the desolation and the randomness and the waiting, are at least waiting together. Aww.
And yet they persevered.
Right. So after they try the boots, Dee Dee notices that Lucky's hat from the day before is still there. And they they have this whole kind of vaudevillian thing where they're switching hats. Didi tries it on, and then he passes it to Estragon, and Estragon puts it up, and they keep switching hats. And then they decide, oh, we should try, we'll pretend we're Putzo and Lucky.
This seems bad.
Well, but then while they're talking about doing that, which, Gogo still doesn't remember that they were even there, somebody, I think Didi says, oh, they're coming. And at that point, they think it's possibly Godot coming, but they go and hide. And what actually ends up happening is that Putzo and Lucky come back.
Oh. Right.
Before that happens, I have to say there's a little back and forth where they, again, to pass the time, say we need to let's abuse each other to pass the time. So
hot.
They start calling each other names, and
if you're into that kind of thing.
And at the end of a page of them saying cretin, abortion, blah, 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 they call each other all these things. The last thing that I think Didi says is critic. And then they're both like, oh, you went. The reaction is basically, you went too far with that one.
I see you, Beckett. I see you. I see what you're doing here.
Right. So there's a little contemporary call-outs I would expect going on there.
Beckett said, sorry to my haters.
Right.
But you're watching my play.
So Putzo and Lucky come back. However, it soon becomes clear that Putzo is blind at this point. We don't know why. They don't quite understand that that's happened at first. He basically is not, he talks to them, and Didi and Gogo are like, don't you remember us? And Putzo says, I don't know you. Because what they find out eventually is that he's blind. They try to engage Lucky. Turns out Lucky at this point, what Putzo says is, oh, he can't speak.
What happened to Lucky?
We don't know.
Oh, no.
So for whatever reason, Putzo is now blind. Lucky cannot speak. When they first arrive, and because Putzo is blind, Putzo runs into Lucky. Well, what happens, Lucky stops because he sees the two of them. Putzo runs into Lucky because he's blind, and they fall on the ground. And then there's this there's a way too long piece where Didi and Gogo consider whether they should help him up. So finally Didi says, let us not waste our time in idle discourse. Let us do something while we have the chance. It is not every day that we are needed, not indeed that we personally are needed. Others would meet the case equally well, if not better. To all mankind they were addressed, these cries for help, still ringing in our ears. But at this place, at this moment in time, all mankind is us, whether we like it or not. Let us make the most of it before it is too late. Let us represent worthily, for once, the foul brood to which a cruel fate consigned us. What do you say? And Gogo doesn't say anything.
That's absolutely delightful for the play and the characters, and also makes me think of, because a lot of our lives, right, are objectively very easy, right? We're deeply spoiled by living in the society we live in.
Right.
And we're also deeply lonely, a lot of us.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of us, when someone like drops something and you see it and you're like, your scarf.
Right.
And you get this little thrill. You're like, I'm doing it.
Yes, exactly.
I'm a part of the community.
Right. Well, and I think, there's so much, obviously, as we've talked in some of these passages that we've read, he's bringing in little pieces of like, oh, we're talking about Christ. Oh, we're talking about, and so this moment, this like key moment where they can be true, they can live out the golden rule, like do unto others, and they end up fighting about it for like 3 pages.
Yeah, sounds right.
But, Didi is so like, we've been given this crystal clear moment.
We can uplift all mankind with but one hand.
Right. And then, of course, as you might expect, they both go to try helping Putzo and Lucky up, and they both end up falling down as well. So you have this moment where all 4 of the characters are on the ground on the stage.
Sounds, yeah, that tracks.
Right.
Literally and metaphorically, I am picking up what is being put down, yes.
Right. what's funny is they're all struggling to get up. They all struggle to get up. There's all this dialogue about getting up and whatever. And finally, it's almost as if some magic, the blindfold is lifted and finally somebody just like stands up. It's just like, oh, I've done it.
Yeah.
And so after Didi and Gogo get up, they help Pazzo up. There's a little bit of like quips about his blindness that probably may not ring as well today. And it's a little bit more,
Sure. What? You mean that we as a society have decided to stop making fun of people for being blind?
Apparently, yes.
What next?
I know. And so one of them has to do with Pazzo wants to know if it's evening. And, Didi's like, well, clearly, can't you see? And it's like, no, I can't see. Well, look around you. Well, I can't look around. It's that kind of level.
Who's on first? I'm blind.
Exactly. There's also this really great, like, self-referential joke in the play at this point where Didi tells Gogo to help Lucky up because they've helped Pazzo up because he's the nobleman. Of course, they have to help him up first.
Sure.
So that and Didi tells Gogo to do it, and he doesn't. And Didi says, "What are you waiting for?" And Gogo says, "I'm waiting for Godot."
He did the thing. He said the name.
He said the thing.
It's a funny version. He's in a play.
Right.
He's a character. He's trapped in a play, and
Right.
he's also a metaphor.
Boom! There it is. Yeah. So
Woo!
finally, Pazzo and Lucky gather themselves to leave. Kind of significantly at this point, Lucky is the sighted one, and so he's gathering all the things. He picks up both the end of his rope and a whip and gives them to Pazzo before he's let off.
Mm-hmm.
So mankind giving in to its own slavery, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's this great moment, I think at least, near the end where they are questioning Pazzo about, don't you remember coming here yesterday? And Pazzo erupts into this big tirade about the way time is so short and how it goes so quickly and everything. And there's this great line where he says, they give birth astride a grave, the light gleams for an instant, then it's night once more. Your life is basically the time that it takes from being born atop a grave to falling into the grave.
Yeah. Killer line.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It's very distressing.
So at this point, a boy comes back. It's the same boy. They ask him, aren't you the boy who came yesterday? And he says, no, of course. They ask him more about Godot. They say, what does he do? What does Godot do? He does nothing, sir, the boy answers. Okay. He once again says, he's not coming tonight. He will certainly come tomorrow. And so then we have the final dialogue.
You say we have to come back tomorrow?
Yes.
Then we can bring a good bit of rope.
Yes.
Didi?
Yes.
I can't go on like this.
That's what you think.
If we parted, that might be better for us.
We'll hang ourselves tomorrow. Unless Godot comes.
And if he comes?
We'll be saved.
Well, shall we go?
Pull on your trousers.
What?
Pull on your trousers.
You want me to pull off my trousers?
Pull on your trousers.
True.
Well, shall we go?
Yes. Let's go. They do not move. Curtain.
And there we have it.
So it's death, right?
It's anything you want it to be.
No, we're not here for that wishy-washy bullshit.
Oh, it's anything you want it to be.
So that's Waiting for Godot.
That's Waiting for Godot. Did you like it? Did you like what you think you heard?
Yeah, I think so. This is very much a type of both literature and play where it's like everything is a metaphor, like it's the human condition.
Yep.
Hey!
Right.
These characters aren't really characters; they're symbols.
Yeah.
But also they're characters, but they're symbols.
Part of what's key to this being theatrical is that the meat of the work, the intensity of the work, is all about how they interact.
Right. I can see how like the entire production would really hinge on those two actors having an incredible amount of chemistry.
Yeah.
You have to feel how much they care about each other, and I am sure at times how frustrated they are with each other. Like, it's all in the execution of their relationship specifically,
right,
that takes it from being slightly frustrating
yeah, on
the page to feeling really like rich and lived in and real, and letting you kind of forget. Ham-fisted isn't the word, but kind of the intensity of what's being done on sort of the metaphorical end.
Yeah.
I do notice that stuff like that fades into the background a lot more readily in live theater when it's, I mean, obviously, especially when it's acted well, but there's a lot you can get away with a live performance that doesn't translate as well to just being read on the page.
Right. Yeah. And I think you've talked about this before too, is it's not like something like this had never been done, but it had never been done like this. It had never been done as well, with as much humor, with as much intelligence plus humor, and with an understanding that, yes, you can imprint on this in so many different ways. You can make this about religion. You can make it about politics. You can make it about war. You can make it about sex. You can make it about, there's so many ways that this is open-ended to interpretation on purpose. And the power of it comes in how it's acted and what the audience brings to it.
Right. And because it truly revolutionized sort of a genre, it's been parodied and riffed on and teased out and redone and had homages, and so it's sort of to death. And so, yeah, like you're saying, we've said this a billion times, like by the time you get back to the text, you're like,
oh yeah,
I get it.
Right.
And you're like, well, okay, but that's because it's been 80 years.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, and I think it also gives you a template. It gives people a template. You mentioned Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which, not unlike Godot, there's a main couple and a subsidiary couple, and the meat of that show is these two individuals. I mean, it's the toxic alternative to Godot in a way, and that these two individuals are realizing how horrible they are. But nothing happens in that show. I mean,
it's just two people making you realize as they realize how much they fucking hate each other.
Exactly.
And how long they've hated each other.
Right. And there's no, the plot points are tiny. It's all happening during one night. And so there's this template, like I mentioned, air swimming. There was a show that was done also at Triangle Players last year called 1 for 2, which is all about being a gay HIV positive Black man in America today. Whew. And it is done in very much the same way. There's 3 characters. They have there's no set character. They each take up characters in turn, and there's a lot of like riffing, and it's this way of setting up theater to be a blank slate that you can repurpose for making commentary.
So when this hit the stage, was it that much of a departure from what was it being contrasted against? Was it just like a lot of, sorry, what year did you say that this hit production?
The first production in Paris was in 1953, and then the first English language production was in London in 1955.
So, assuming that there wasn't a ton of theater happening during the war itself, what was the theater scene? Was it big, kind of fluffy productions with 8 million characters and everything was very...
there was...
What did this make such a change from, I guess, is...
Mostly kind of... There was a lot of post-war realism, and there was a lot of post-war Happy Times musicals kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And so this was a very distinct, one of the reasons that people loved it or hated it is because, like I said, nothing happens. But, the people who really loved it were kind of like, this is bringing us back to what theater should be or could be. We're not distracted by fancy sets. There doesn't have to be big musical numbers. It doesn't have to be this very complicated romantic plot. It's just like two people working it out together on stage.
Right.
And, some critics loved it and some people hated it. There's stories of people, taxi drivers used to wait outside the show in London to get the people who left during admission. Because so many people were leaving. But it gives the opportunity for actors in particular. The legacy now, these days, is that it is such a meaty thing for 2 to 5 really, really awesome actors to kind of dig in and do amazing things with.
Right. Like they're real showcase roles. That makes sense.
Yeah. So like one of the first production in the US had Bert Lahr from Wizard of Oz. He was the Cowardly Lion.
Oh, okay.
And Tom Ewell, who was in 7-Year Itch.
Okay.
So these were two pretty, particularly after 7-Year Itch, Tom Ewell was a pretty big deal comedian-wise. So they were in the first U.S. production. It did not do well. It did horribly. In fact, by the time it got to Broadway, they wouldn't stage it on Broadway at first. And so the first time it played in the U.S., it was in Miami. And then it played some cities on the way to Broadway. Tom Ewell dropped out because he had some other thing he that would pay him better, probably.
He was tired of people being mean to him.
Right. But E.G. Marshall stepped in, who was a pretty big deal actor at the time. So you do have these actors who are recognizing this as a way to showcase their work, whether or not people go to see it because it's a laugh riot or it's this beautiful musical number. It's like they're going to see some really top-notch actors kind of strut their stuff.
Yeah. Well, and some of us like weird, upsetting plays.
Exactly.
One of my favorite productions I've ever seen was Arthur Miller's All My Sons, which is just so sad. It's just so fucking sad.
Yeah. What I love is that so many really awesome actors have really wanted to do this. And, Zura Mostel did a TV version of this with Burgess Meredith.
Oh, I'm going to have to see if I can find that.
Yeah, I tried. I couldn't find it, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Someone pirate it and send it to me, please. Thank you.
In the 70s, there was an Australian production that had Geoffrey Rush and Mel Gibson.
What?
Yeah.
I forget sometimes that Mel Gibson actually could act.
Did you see his Hamlet? It wasn't bad.
He's a turd.
Oh, yeah.
He's just a horrible person.
Yeah.
But he's one of those people who's thoroughly ruined his own reputation so much that you're like, oh, yeah, you were kind of good at your job for a while there, buddy.
There was a time, right.
Kind of like how I consistently forget that Gwyneth Paltrow could act.
Yeah.
Back when she did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That connects because Shakespeare in Love, Gwyneth Paltrow's big role, written by Tom Stoppard. Tom Stoppard directly riffs off of Beckett.
I see.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Tom Stoppard did.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen Godot done live. I've watched movie versions of it. I've seen clips of it. I've seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It's hilarious.
It's been on my list, but I haven't actually made it because there's one with, was it Tim Robbins?
Yeah.
Who I really like him.
Yeah.
He's a great actor, and I have been meaning to watch that for quite a while.
Yeah. Beckett set that template for people like Edward Albee for Tom Stoppard to do the kind of things they did. So
thanks, Beckett.
Yay. It's interesting when Beckett's legacy is a little complicated because he's writing at a specific time. He was very persnickety about women not doing the show, which kind of became a deal. But he died in 1989.
Well, he probably thought that the love of two old men for each other was something that no woman could ever properly comprehend because women don't understand the depths of affection that men are capable of having. Sorry, what?
What's lovely and ironic is that his stated objection is that there's often times where Vladimir has to go off stage to pee because he's an old man. And the one thing that is attributed to Beckett is he said, women can't do this play because women don't have prostates.
Does he think that older women also don't have to pee all the time?
Hey, I'm not gonna...
Has he heard of child? You know what? Never mind.
Yeah, right.
Never mind. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. So
Beckett's understanding of the pelvic floor?
Not great.
You know what?
Yeah.
Fine. Did he have children?
No, he didn't.
Did he ever marry?
He did marry. And he had several lovers.
A woman?
Yeah.
Did he think to ask her about peeing? You know what? Never mind.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to defend the man.
I mean, it's whatever. It's
Right.
just very funny.
He seemed to be very persnickety about stage directions and the specifics of his shows, including how they were cast. However, some people have mistakenly said that he didn't want mixed race casts or alternate, racial casting of the show. He personally endorsed and helped produce a show in Cape Town during apartheid that had a mixed race cast.
Oh, that's cool. And quite brave, I should think.
Well, at the time, definitely. So he was very much coming from Ireland and having lived through World War II, was very much against right-wing governments in general, oppressive governments in general. There were times that he wouldn't let his plays be produced in Ireland at certain times, or in other countries because of the politics of what was happening there. So it's a complicated legacy in a way, because in part because he died, his estate has gotten even more intense about bringing lawsuits when somebody wants to do an all-female cast or...
Oh, ew, why?
Yeah.
That's weird. That's weird.
It's a little weird, yeah. I would not attribute that to Beckett himself. I just feel like it has been done, the show has been done in really interesting and cool circumstances, in terms of they did it in New Orleans after Katrina, an artist came in and did productions of Godot that brought kind of the community together. During the pandemic, Ethan Hawke and John Leguizamo did a Zoom production of it to kind of bring communities together.
That's cool.
Had Wallace Shawn in it and stuff. So it has also been it's been an interesting vehicle to kind of be, here's the human condition in times of extremists,
yeah.
Doesn't life suck? But hey, let's wear our bowler hats and laugh at each other,
That's nice.
I guess, yeah.
You're the one who just made the point. All I did was agree with you. What do you mean you guess?
Well, it'd be nice if things didn't suck so bad, but no, that's part of why I love this show, is I think it's a great vehicle.
Things are always gonna suck.
That's true.
Old white boomer man. What do you have to complain about?
Because I'm the Dee in this who's like, things are gonna be better.
No, but you just said it.
I know. It doesn't make any sense.
Put your pants on. Take off your boots. What are you doing?
I think part of what is really cool about this show is that it is open to so much interpretation, and it's a situation where it generates conversation because people end up being so divided, and people are like, this sucks, this is stupid, and then other people are like, no, this is genius, this is amazing, and that frisson, as it were, is I think hard to come by. It's easy to find something that everybody hates. It's harder to have something that everybody loves, but this is one of those truly divisive things that people have really strong opinions about.
We need more of those. I feel like you could probably spend a full weekend with someone that you liked and respected fighting over this play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Because there's enough stuff in it to do that with.
Right. Yep. And yes, that experiential aspect of it is part of the other thing. The first time, I was assigned this in high school. This is my high school copy.
Aw.
I did not read it in high school, but I brought it to college with me, and there were friends of mine and I who would sit around very stoned, and we started reading plays one night, and it ended up being a kind of semi-habitual thing.
I love that.
When we read Godot, we were on the floor because, particularly with a little chemical assistance, some of the dialogue is just hilarious, and it gives you a lot of meat to just do silly stuff with.
Now I want to get some friends together and just like crack a bottle of wine and start reading plays out loud.
Yeah.
As like a team effort. That sounds really fun.
Yeah. And it doesn't require, in the way that these guys are ciphers, it doesn't require that you have a, distinct British accent and you be able to act like the Lord of so-and-so or whatever. It's like, you're just a dude hanging out on the road. Like, it's not, it allows you to bring whatever you can bring to it.
David?
Yes.
Are we not just all dudes hanging out on the road?
Waiting.
Waiting for who? Say it. Say it.
I don't know. Who's that? I don't know. Some guy. I don't know. Nobody I know.
It's death. Waiting for death.
You said it. I didn't. This has also been a vehicle for some very smart people to say some really great things. Peter Hall is a director. He is the founder of the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Okay.
He directed the first London production when he was like 24.
Oh, cool.
And he's done other productions of this since. And one of the things that he said in reference to this being so key to the theatrical world is film is simile, theater is metaphor.
Ooh.
Which I think is really cool. And I think this is a play that uses that. Like you said, everything that's happening in this play is metaphor or metaphorical, it could be. And so much of film is trying to recreate, I don't know. I don't have to explain the quote to you, but
yeah. No, that's fascinating. I'm going to be thinking about that one for a little bit.
I will say that Beckett wrote a ton of stuff after this. He wrote for TV. He did a lot of really cool stuff, but there was a kind of clump of plays that he did right around Godot. He did Godot, Endgame, Happy Days, and Krapp's Last Tape. This is like his golden period. This is his imperial period. Those are like the works that just like still remain relevant and cool and kind of amazing. Afterwards, I think the buddy comedy version of existentialism, he was never quite able to recreate or redo in as impactful a way.
I mean, do you need to do it more than once?
I don't think so. Yeah.
There are certain projects literarily and theatrically where you're like, you did it's done.
Yeah.
We did it.
You did the thing.
It doesn't need to be done again because you did it so good the first time.
Right. And, probably unlike many artists today, he was able to turn Godot into his livelihood. I mean, he basically was financially secure from then on and was able to write and experiment and he won the Nobel Prize. He was able, which kind of terrified him in a way, I think. His only quote about it was that it was a disaster. Yeah, I mean, that would freak me out too, honestly. Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I think people will there's so many people who will say, oh, well, he popped his one shot and that was it. And it's like, well, yeah, he did something totally groundbreaking. And then he did a lot of other stuff that was pretty good, but you can't break the ground more than once, I guess.
Well, and how many times do we it is weird, I think, when someone does something that fundamentally changes an art form. And then the criticism is like, yeah, and then they didn't do that a second time. And you're like, just let them live.
Right. I mean, Christ only came once, right?
Like, you cannot expect someone to upend someone, like everyone's understanding of a genre more than once in a lifetime.
Right.
Leave them be.
Yeah. Right. Well, so are you going to take that book home and are you going to read it?
Yes.
Good.
I am.
Yay.
I didn't read it, but I'm going to.
Yay. And share it with friends.
I will. I'll read it at them. They'll love it.
Because people love that. Yes.
I'm coming for you, babes. Well, that was a good adventure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming back, for joining me here on this show.
Oh, my pleasure.
For having a little reunion with me.
It was awesome. And you will come back. Chasing Phantom is ending its first season, like, right now.
Yay!
So let's talk about you coming in on season 2.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll find a nice jukebox musical for you to talk about.
Oh, okay. Wow. I thought we were friends.
We're just podcast partners.
Never mind. You can f*** right off.
Well, I'd like to say this has been a pleasure, Grace, but...
Thanks for the theatrical expertise, I guess. Get out.
See, we've become Dee Dee and Gogo just now, right now. We have become the topic.
It was our destiny, and we've accomplished it.
Right. And so the key to this episode is going to be for us to be like, okay, goodbye.
God,
and then we're gonna still be here.
We always find something, don't we, David? To give us the impression we exist?
We're magicians.
Well,
thank
you all so much for being here with me today. Thank you again, David.
Thank you.
I suppose. If you enjoyed David, you can find more of him on his podcast, Chasing Phantom, wherever podcasts are found. And you can find us. You've already found us. But if you want to do me a very personal favor, we could really use some more reviews. If you liked the show, it makes a big difference. It's extremely helpful. If you can, take a minute, tell a friend, or leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen.
We're just going to be waiting here until you do that.
I'm sitting alone staring at my phone.
Trying to take my boot off.
But other than that one little favor, as always, if you can, this week, this month, this pay period, consider supporting a living author or playwright, because they could really use the love.
Amen.
Bye.
Bye.
Didn't Read It was created, written, recorded, and edited by me, Grace Todd. You can follow the show on Instagram or Twitter at Didn't Read It.
Our theme song is Books, written, performed, and recorded by William Albritton.
For sources cited and a full list of episodes, you can visit us at didntreaditpod.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review. It makes a big difference, and we appreciate it immensely.
If you did not enjoy the show, we are accepting applications for a full-time nemesis at didntreaditpod@gmail.com. Special thanks to Black Iris Social Club in Richmond, Virginia, and to Pesca Trio Publishing.